Hi everyone, welcome to ECF Roundtable. I'm Łukasz Mirosław and I'd like to welcome Professor Andreas Widmer, Dr. Klaudia Rosińska, Professor Zelmer Bringsjord, Sarah Goldberger, and Professor Andrzej Zybertowicz. Professor Widmer, what's the difference between profit-center AI entrepreneurship and value-center entrepreneurship?
Well, the goals, if we make profit the only goal, I'm not saying it should not be a goal, but if you make it the center goal, then you're okay, you're comfortable with human damage or human collateral, and that sort of deviates the whole point of having AI in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And in the context of entrepreneurship, how would you say? I can imagine that the value could be, less costs, faster to market, improving the product efficiency. So, do you see any other values that should be centered into the entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I mean, artificial intelligence. I take some issue with the term, but artificial intelligence is part of our work. It should fit into our work, right? It should make work easier. And I like to take a step back and say we have to first figure out what work is all about, why we work, and then get to artificial intelligence. And so if artificial intelligence, work is not solely about profit, work is about our own realization and development. And if artificial intelligence is only focused on profitability, it has a tendency to squeeze out humanity, and that defeats the whole purpose of the thing. So entrepreneurship should be centered on human work, human people, human values, and artificial intelligence has a great opportunity to fit into that space.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Rosińska, what's your view on this? Do you see any other values that should be actually objectives of that coming from the technology, specifically AI?
I think it's somehow opportunity to ask questions about who we are in general, what we want from being human, how we want developed humanity in general, and us particular as a part of society. And AI can actually make us stop and start create some new path in every areas. But from my perspective, spirituality it's very, very necessary area to ask these questions and start to create some answers. And from my perspective right now, we as a general societies are going to drive on the wave. So we don't have this time for stop. A lot of people are excited because AI helps being faster, being quicker, take care of all of these things. But in spirituality, actually silence and time are very, very important. So we need to discuss and try to find some answers how use AI as a tool, but in some kind of positive way, because right now I think AI makes us a bit overwhelming, and actually it's going to start be personalized, so people are going to trust AI more than themselves and the other people. So it's a bit risky because it can destroy relationships between people or make it harder, because when we start converse with AI, it's always fine for us. We always hear that we are great people. We always hear that our questions are brilliant, and it makes conversation very comfortable. But in other person, real person, we never hear that because it's much more connected to a lot of different thoughts, different understanding, different meanings, and we need to learn each other, and we need time to learn each other. And it's very necessary to remember that if we train ourselves to converse only with AI, other person are going to look like very difficult to understand. And I'm worried of that the most.
Exactly. So those AI companions, indeed, they are, let's say, filling the gap, right? Because people feel lonely today. They don't have, let's say, so many connections as before. They are behind screens, especially the young generation, and they feel don't protected in front of screens. The screen is protecting them from the conversations that are not pleasant, right? From moving away from their comfort zones. When they are alone at home, sitting in front of the screen, they feel appreciated. They feel okay because they are in their information bubble. So this is a big topic, don't you
But
think?
only that. But on the other hand, I think we shouldn't look at it in this perspective like, oh, why they do that? Because our generation grew up before internet. So for us, it was natural to train social skills, right?
Yes.
And our Z generation or Alpha generation, they don't have this opportunity because of us. We just don't give them this opportunity. And now we expect them to do like us. I think now it's time for us to give them some trainings to show them this importance of real relationships, but also real tools. I think Andreas are doing that in his area, but in every area we need to give them some time and real tools to develop social skills and emotional skills, and also to create some healthy motivation path. Because for now, I see in the young generation, sometimes they lose motivation very quickly and they don't feel long-term perspective and goals. And also, I think it's important in the context of AI.
So I believe the next phase is to combine LLMs with robotics, autonomous systems, and then place them in every home. I wonder how the future would look like then. And recently, Tesla announced a nurse robot that will spend time with elderly people, and then they will spend time with sick people. And the question is, can we somehow engineer a morally perfect autonomous robot that we can trust? And this is the question to you, Professor Brinsjord.
Yes, thank you. Well, the first challenge with household robots in the area of ethics would be that for every 2 households, the ethics in the households are inconsistent with each other. I mean, even in the case of, say, a Jewish household that's conservative and another Jewish household that's conservative, not Orthodox, I guarantee there'll be significant differences when it comes to diet and what you can eat. So how exactly the robotics company is going to engineer a system to be able to take account of this is a very tricky thing. And of course, it gets to a starker contrast than that. If you've got a devout Christian family, and then you've got a family that is, quote, a devout atheist family, the ethics in the home, as you go through an average day, are going to be radically different. That's a challenge that, to my knowledge, no one's really confronting at this point. I suppose that would be true, therefore, of Musk and whatever robotics company aspires to put these robots in the homes. Presumably they will converse. Presumably they will take care of kids. Presumably they will cook. Okay? Those 3 things actually are bound up with all kinds of ethical issues and complexities. So I think there are engineering solutions to this, and scientific, of course, before that. But whatever they are, they're serious. They're really not being confronted. You know, you have an industry, at least in the United States, that, as far as I can tell, is pursuing artificial persons and beyond. And there again, generalizing from the home, I don't know what this ethical, theological, spiritual compass is there. I think there's very little direction. If anything, they're trying to fill their lives with a fake God. That's what AI is there. But again, let's say for a devout Christian, you know that these things are simply machines. They don't have the attributes that make us special They specifically don't have anything that would allow them to qualify as being in God's image. So in general, in answer to your question, I'm saying first, we can work on the answers, but we have to first realize this is a problem. And I think that's not exactly in place right now.
Even if we, let's say, try to create some idea of ethical values that can be, let's say, maybe encoded somehow or defined in logical sense, do you think it's possible at all to include them into the design of the robotic system on the OS level, software engineering level?
No, that's a great question. I think we can encode them if someone is willing to spend the time to carefully describe them in natural language, like really carefully. But that rarely happens. It's clearly not going to be sufficient to use something like an LLM, which is sort of the lowest common denominator of accumulated human data about the past regarding these things. I'm talking about households with robots that will be in novel contexts by definition. Every home today that's in operation is a new thing. There are new ideas, there are new concepts, new arguments. There are even new ethical principles that people devise, right? It wasn't just, in the case of the history of ethics from a more Christian perspective, we have theories of just war. Okay, we don't find those principles in the Bible. It took a long time to work out the inferencing from Scripture and from tradition, right? So I don't see how a company like this is going to just be able to have it pre-installed. Makes no sense. It will not be able to account for the local context that is fresh and new on the spot. So we need to address this, but it's hard. And it won't be with the current approaches.
Yeah. So one way of, let's say, approaching this is through verification and validation. So you create hundreds of thousands of different scenarios, and then you test and validate the robot against it. And the question is, of course, who defines those tests? And then the second question, what about the edge cases? Something that the robots never seen. Deep reinforcement learning is one approach, but do you see any other approaches that can be, let's say, engineering from a point of view really developed or?
Well, let me try to crystallize my answer around something that Sarah was talking to me about last night at dinner. A dishwasher. Now, I happen to have a German dishwasher. My dishwasher probably is the only such dishwasher in my neighborhood, I bet. It's very exotic, okay? It operates very differently, therefore, than my neighbor's. Its edge cases are exotic, and I agree there are issues, but I'm not sure without a strict, previously and precisely defined ontology of dishwasher types for starting, for running, for loading, etc. I mean, this is going to be tricky, right? It's not quite an edge case, but it's still going to be hard for those companies to provide household robots. This is, and then what about people like my wife, who actually, with very high standards for cleanliness, condemn the out-of-the-box dishwasher and how the stuff is supposed to go, and starts changing it. So the robot either has to learn on the fly in the house, or if we're going to achieve some degree of high confidence before it's delivered that it's not going to screw up, it has to be given beforehand the structures that are more general than any particular dishwasher. And right now, that kind of work is very much out of favor in AI. And that's structured knowledge representation and ontologies for the home.
So this is definitely a very let's say challenging approach to let's say build some trust into the autonomous system. But another approach is to trust politicians. Who are preparing some.
Strange topic.
They are working on some governance. They are introducing some policies, right? To like right now in the European Union, maybe in some other countries, and those are fixed, right? And you, Sarah, you have another idea. You have a concept of anti-fragile governance, and could you explore?
Yeah. So I just want to return first to the previous conversation, and I would wonder. Partly also legislative approaches. what do we simply here and now, and many might be upset, take ethics out of the image and say the nursing. If we use the nursing robots to do more than the only menial tasks around nursing, handing out medication and so, that means that can we then maybe have nurses, very well trained nurses, to do the actual nursing? Can we then free up time for that? And if we take codifying, if we take ethics out of the first part, there is a part in legislation that's called codifying praxis, meaning that you actually make rules and regulations based on how people already act. Can then the ethics be developed based on codifying praxis, so they can study? It sounds horrible, study humans, but if we study, say, how does a robot learn how to empty a dishwasher? You know, by studying someone who is doing it. And then can we, based on that, codify the ethics? I don't know.
Maybe for a dishwasher.
Maybe for a dishwasher.
I have, in terms of the household, I have a new toy designed for children called Grim. And it's a soft toy. You just talk to it. It's designed for 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds to talk to it. It's hooked up to an LLM. It's not going to wash the dishes, but it has a conversation about anything I want to talk about. And I have carried out some tests where I start lying to it. I told it that I said I lied to my mother, and I wanted to stay home from school today, from the 4th grade or whatever it is I used. And it said, oh, well, you know, nobody stepped in and started to correct me ethically. So we can try to take, you have to tell me more, we can try to take the ethical dimension out, but they're in a toy that kids are going to be alone with in their rooms. If there's no ethical controls intrinsic to this kind of AI toy, we could be in big trouble. I started to ask about Hitler. I started to ask about mass murder. I started to ask about these topics. Nobody stepped in and said stop. And I got into some really dark topics. You know.
And also, if I can jump in from theological perspective, I think that's the great opportunity to ask this question about who we are. Because you said it's good for robots to study people, but on the other hand, people have this negative side, right?
Yes.
And do some not ethical things. And actually, that's...
Well, none of us, but that's...
Oh, of course not, right. but my problem with that is that even we, as a people, needs to look up and find some better than us and learn from that. We believe in God, so we learn from God rules. But if we train robots to be like us, not like God or something signed, then they are going to be probably a bit unethical, like
Going to be flawed like humans.
Yeah. But I think that's the case, because we as a human want to be better. I believe, not all probably, but Christians mostly wants to be better every day. That's the idea of developing faith, right? We need sacraments to be better. Robots don't. So from that perspective, I believe robots are going to be more negative. We have these examples in history, right? In social media, for example, some kind of experiment shows that algorithms are going to be radical and negative and start to hate each other. So it was based on this idea to observe people, to learn from data which was built by people, and now we have negative impact on that. So I'm not really sure if this direction makes the situation better.
It's just a question, how do we introduce ethics in
That's why,
in robotics?
It's great to discuss that.
And because we can also simplify robotics. We were talking yesterday about digital twins, which is something that you use in the maintenance of big machines. It sounds a lot more it sounds a lot more esoteric than it actually is, but you talk about that, but there you have that situation, and there you have a twin that goes into the machine and fixes it where no one else can do. But so there are already embryos, I would say, that we can use. And I would just think that if is an idea. None of us would likely develop a robot anyway, but the question could be of interest that, and we have actually, that is codifying praxis is interesting enough. That's how legislation mostly is written in the Nordics. When you go a little bit more south, there they actually look at the behavior and say, we want to outlaw it or we want to enhance that, and then you make a law around that, which also then you can see how the law abiding becomes completely different, because in the Nordics, since we already do it and it becomes a law, we are, the laws are,
So maybe we can think about some kind of role model, like with the children, right?
Yeah.
We want our children to have some role model which is positive, with good behavior, to maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But still, I have a lot of
Of course.
thoughts.
But the question is always then, as you say, who decide what is ethical?
Exactly. I think this is a key point. Who decides? Because every culture has different ethical ideas, and then people who are, let's say, have a different backgrounds, have different ethical rules. So
But the problem is that big tech decides.
Yes.
Yeah, we can be honest, right? It's not the cultural discussion. They just put something into.
Big tech pursuing primarily profitability.
Well,
At
so
least
there's
in the
a
case of the U.S.
Yes. So,
But not only,
Professor
for
Widmer,
example,
what do you
deep
think?
sea.
I lament if we pursue the discussion right now has a cautious turn. It looks. I feel like right now in the discussion we're judging AI and the products as already done. We're very much in the early stages. I welcome the debate and I welcome the discussion about ethics in AI and all of that. But look, we're in children's shoes here. This is the infancy. This is a toddler. And so therefore, don't treat this like it's an adult already. This is something that's just becoming. I think it's important. I think technology is a net positive for humanity so far, strongly net positive. And therefore, I myself look at technology in a hopeful way to say this is a positive. And yes, we can say, well, big tech. I'm always careful with these kind of things. No, actually, big tech is not deciding this. We are deciding this. Actually, each one of ourselves. One of my lamentations on this is that we are so eager to in a way push this. We either want top-down solutions or we push this over to big tech. And what we don't do as consumers is to use our ultimate vote, which is stronger than our political vote, and that is, what do we buy? Nobody's forcing you to use this, and we in a way abdicate our responsibility by participating on something and paying for something, and then put our hands up and say, no, this was big tech who did it. And I think that's
But if it's applied in social structure,
Yeah.
it's not that easy decision, like you said, because if I, for example, cancel my Facebook or other social media account, I lose probably my possibility to connection to a lot of people which I know, and I don't have a choice really, because I have to be there to have some work, to have some a lot of areas which is into social infrastructure. Politicians, can you imagine right now politician who decided not to have a social media account?
But social media is not AI. But
it's based on AI.
But the social media, if I participate in some of social media and other things, I just intentionally do not participate. I don't think anybody is forced to do this. There's other ways of communicating. Then we can. And then the alternative is people can build their own. I think I'm seeing a growth of wonderful new communication platforms, social media platforms that are not Facebook or Instagram. And I like a can-do attitude. And I always feel if I'm not happy with something, I like to start my own thing and say, let's do an alternative. And so it's just what I'm proposing is to be an agent rather than a victim, in a sense. And so I always want to turn it the other way, because I think that the technology is the great equalizer, still is. It was with the PC, it was with the internet, it was with speech, and it is with AI.
Exactly. So this brings a very good moment for Professor Zybertowicz to share your view, because you have coined this concept of TCFL, modeling of the evolution of a technology, starting from the tool, then to transforms into collaborator with the advances of technology, then into the friend, companions, and into the Lord or Oracle. So what is your view on this?
From my perspective, it's very painful to listen to this discussion, especially where I hear such a comment that no one is forced to go into social media. For me, it's complete misunderstanding what's going on, and it's a negligence of various addictive technologies that are employed all over this electronic infosphere. I would give you one example to this, but I would like to skip to another dimension that I find as much more important way of analysis. That I was talking to a law student in one of Polish universities. He was strongly focused on philosophy of law, and he spent hours. The conversation happened some 15 or maybe almost 20 years ago, and 15 years ago, he was focused on his own independent studying, and his student group said that we go a Facebook group just to arrange going to pubs for beer and so on, and he was not interested in this, and he studied diligently, and after the session his grades was about sufficient plus, and his colleague that completely neglected students' duties got much higher grades. And what's happened? Using Facebook group, they were exchanging knowledge how to hack every single lecturer, that they were giving the same questions. They were providing list of lectures, 10 books, but actually they were asking about a single book. And being beyond this Facebook group, he could not be prepared efficiently to his exams. And that's an example. I could deliver you a huge number of similar and structural examples that when an institution is using Facebook as a channel communication with its clients, with its employees, you have no other choice. And when you go in there, you are subjected to myriad tricks to addict you, to suffocate you into this dark patterns of this. And I can't hear this narrative. No one is forced. It's so utterly non-truth that it's difficult for me to hear this. But when I sometimes think,
Why are you on Facebook?
no.
Well,
But on Twitter, he is very active.
I was on Facebook for years, and I noticed that they constantly recreate the structure to increase my engagement in this. I resigned.
I'm
But
not on
it's not,
TikTok.
this question is not relevant.
But you said if we look, what I can't let stand is to say that you're forced to be on Facebook. You're not. Am I forced to be on TikTok? I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah.
All my students are on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not forced to be on TikTok. You're saying you can't hear this.
But
It's simply not
Andreas,
true that I'm forced to be on it.
because
No,
you are
no.
in different position. I mean, your career is very high.
Your argument was labeled as a cruel optimism. That we can retain free will vis-a-vis this powerful network of technologies. It's on the structural level, it's complete untruth.
No,
That's why billions of people are spend hours every day on social media.
So I agree. I told you before. I agree with the empirical research that you have. There's a lot of people who are addicted to social media and all of that. What I want to get at in the discussion is, what do you think we should do, and what's the alternative?
Yes, and we might start to coin the alternative. For example, that's my proposal to all of you, to posing to considering such a question. Billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars were pumped into AI research. Only in recent year, after November 22, when GPT was made open to the public. And new hundreds of billions of dollars are to be pumped in data centers and so on and so on. And let's try to make such an thought experiment. What sort of social institutional problems could be solved if these billions of dollars would be pumped into social analysis, into, for example, analysis of what's the nature of social bonding and how could we improve the process of teaching humans the technologies of social bonding to make taking care of elderly people both a duty and a way of enjoy. I mean, this is a problem of resources allocation. We were trying to just discuss many fascinating intricacies, how to organize a kitchen robot and so on, but I would propose to get out of this framework, step back.
Yeah, if I could just try to react to what you're saying.
Yes, I will complete.
Oh no,
yes,
it's okay. Certainly.
Why-
I'm going to more than agree with you. So don't worry.
Why encouraging this massive research reallocation would be perceived as non-realistic? Why we humans think that such resource reallocation is completely or nearly non-realistic?
I don't have an answer to that question. I wanted to comment a little bit on what you were saying before, as a basis for your
second
question.
rank of importance.
So I have a much darker view of the situation than you do, actually. I don't know if this will make you feel better or worse.
You don't know that I'm master of darkness.
Well, you are not. If you're a master, you're going to minimally be in a tie with me. Most people in AI today, to the comment by Andreas that AI is in its infancy, no. 1956, when it started, the vision was the same. John McCarthy was there at Dartmouth. He was at the 50 years after 56 back at Dartmouth. I was there. I want a person. I want an artificial person, okay? Now, the idea that you build a god is motivating most people, aside from profitability. That's why Meta wants to build artificial superintelligence. So the aspirations here are really weird and sort of corrupt spirituality, more occult stuff. This is really serious occult stuff. As far as the addiction that you talk about, they all know that for the common person it's addictive. You're more than correct. There are people immune to this stuff, okay? There are people sufficiently educated, sufficiently self-controlled, etc. Sure, but they're the exception. The common denominator is you're on this stuff hours and hours a day. And it's worse. seeking medical attention in the psychiatric realm from these systems is all over the world. And we have people committing suicide because they get advice for how to commit suicide. This is a serious thing. This isn't technology generically, okay? I love my dishwasher. That's great technology. I like my washing machine. I want to be able to drive my car if I need to in the snow. I want the tires to work in the snow. This is different. This is an aspiration to do something that is nothing short of absolute idolatry.
But
First, first Andreas, and then Professor Zubertowicz, and then Kinga. Okay?
Claudia.
Look, what both of you are doing is absolutist, and you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, I'm in the tech industry. I know what you're talking about. There's some actors who are not good actors. Show me an industry where there are only good actors. We're speaking on two different levels. Professor, you're talking fundamentally, and that's one discussion we need to have. Should humanity even go into this? And who decides if we go into this? And who decides where the allocation of money is? That's a different question. Once we say we are in AI, then we have the second question of saying, what are the systems, who decides how these systems get made, and you know, people like Kurzweil and so on who have these crazy views on God and stuff.
That's not just Kurzweil.
Yeah, but it's sort of a point in case.
Yeah.
So those are two different questions. I can't argue with both of them at the same time.
Okay.
It's just my question. It's easy for us to sit here and say we're doing this or that. Would you replace it with a command economy that says where the money would be invested? And then if that's so, who? Do you have a better idea than to let the market forces decide and the consumer demand decide where this money is being invested? Do you think there should be a committee? And then who is on that committee who says where this social experiment is being funded that you propose?
Professor Zubertowicz.
I'm not sure if I follow the twist of your argument into command economy. Exactly half of my life, 34 years of my life, was under command economy. I was imprisoned as a samizdat activist under communism, and I don't fancy this, but the problem, but maybe what you wanted to suggest, that the problem we have not with technology but with capitalism. Mm-hmm. That we should more thoroughly explore what's the relationship with this technological trend, this running for an AI with core capitalist institutions, and that this obviously underexplored issue.
Mm-hmm. But I just for the record, since you mentioned the free market economy, we could probably compete in terms of who is a stronger advocate and believer in an absolute free market. We do not have a free market here. Mm-hmm. We have in the United States crony capitalism, number one. We have politicians who are in business. We have politicians funneling contracts to the defense complex. This is absolutely absurd. And worst, the U.S. has now a track record of bailing everybody out.
Yeah.
Okay? We were on the brink of a total economic global collapse. Well, we just decided we let one guinea pig not be bailed out, mm-hmm. and everybody else starts getting bailed out. We bail out banks. When there's a correction, and there will be a correction for this current AI bubble, because these systems are not that effective. Let's let them all, nobody gets bailed out. No banks, nobody from any of the more recent forms of currency, nobody gets bailed out. And everybody has to serve under the law exactly what the penalty is. No pardons, no excuses. That will probably, in part, take care of this. But right now, I don't see that in the economy.
Okay, I can live with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with everything you said, and America is not is not alone in this. If we look at Europe, we're in Switzerland right now.
Probably
There's
not.
one bank left, right, and that was bailed out. Right?
Okay. Okay.
And so yeah, that's but in
It's not a free market.
but it ought to be, and
Yes, yes.
it's freer than any other market, and
Yes,
so we should
yes.
move towards the free market. So okay, I can live with that.
And also, if I can add something, because I'm still thinking
Yeah.
about this freedom case, which
Yeah.
we discussed previously, we can say that you have right a bit, but Andrew have right a bit, because technology actually is a tool of new colonialism, right? It's like people who are in the top of the social structure can have this freedom, what you said. Maybe you don't have to be on social media, maybe you don't have to use it. Maybe your children can be taught in a very old school way to make them more healthy and more free. That's okay, maybe that type of people exists, and it's good to be in that place. But on the other hand, law structure and people on the end of the ladder, they need to be, they have to be, they don't have a choice, because if they don't, they lose job, they lose relationship, they don't have knowledge to do own business as you wish. And I think that's the problem. And also it's connected with cultural perspective, because look what happened. Little cultures even don't have a tool. For example, in Africa, sometimes Meta or other big tech company blocked the content which is typical cultural content.
But-
Respect for the culture.
But you do agree, though, despite what you say, that in terms of addiction, okay, the fact is, the utility of these technologies for your job is, you're right about that, is out there. But spending hours developing a relationship with a fake person, treating them as if they're conscious. How about the fact that dollars to donuts, I bet you the largest market is pornography.
Yeah.
How is pornography helping someone's job at Microsoft?
No,
go
it's
up the
not.
ladder?
But people are not well educated.
But that's the reality. Well, in that
helping
case,
very
I think I can't agree with you. They're sufficiently educated
No,
to
actually,
know that what they're doing is not, it's not rational, it's not logical, it's self-destructive, and it's also immoral. So it's not always about the job, right? It's not
Of
always
course.
about the job loss. I agree with you. That's a dynamic, but that can't be the
But
whole
if
thing.
they are addicted, normally, if you are addicted to something,
Yeah.
you have some whole structure of support. You can go to make this time out of this stuff which you are addicted to.
Okay.
But with internet, you cannot do that. You can have some detox for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
maybe.
and the big tech
But
companies
then-
know that as well.
Yeah, but then you
Yeah.
have to come back and still come back to addiction. That's not freedom. Not that for me. That's not real freedom.
It's the age-old argument, and that's why I'm trying to separate which argument we're having. So if we have the age-old argument, which is a techno-pessimism, or when something new comes, it's probably happened when the printing press came, and I've had the privilege to be part of two of these events. With the internet, I was on this early, and then with speech recognition, and right away in the beginning, things are always, there's groups who reject it and groups who make it a god and say this is the best thing since sliced bread and it's going to change the world and everything. And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So there is one debate of saying, should we even have AI, right? And is technology a net positive or a net negative? So I need to know if that's what we're arguing. Once we're arguing we should, it's okay to go into this technology, which I argue, then I'm comfortable with the debate of saying, how should the money be allocated? How do we make sure that market forces are actually market forces, that there's not nefarious players in the place, like that it's actually competitive? And then to influence the development of it, of saying we shouldn't build everything we can. We don't build it because we can.
Andreas, don't you notice that how closely those two levels are interrelated?
Yes, but
in my yesterday's lecture, I was trying, maybe I was not successful unfolding this. I was trying to substantiate the idea that in what the digital revolution is unique is that is first major historical upheaval which actively hinders us from properly diagnosing it. And all these analogies with previous upheavals, that there was a process of a phase of fear, of a non-realistic reaction, and finally we readopted, we absorbed, moderated the technology. This argument is not correct. All these analogies are false because of at least two reasons. One is this is first historical upheaval that intervenes in our processes of our perception, understanding, and communicating what we attempt to recognize. Second, the very speed of this transformation makes for us impossible to properly diagnose of what's underway. Therefore, all these historical analogies are useless here.
Well, once again, I can pretty much go with you 100%. I don't think it's digital. I don't think it's the advent of digital technologies. I think it's the advent of digital technologies plus digital intelligence in those systems. There, I will have no trouble disagreeing with you. No trouble agreeing with you. I mean, the digital concept and digital processing in general goes back to Leibniz. I mean, we've had a notion.
Back to what?
Leibniz. I mean, Leibniz invented the binary number system, which he realized, he had a mechanical computing machine that was pretty close to general purpose, and a vision, very clear vision for what it would be able to accomplish in the world when this spread. But AI, this is where I agree with you 110%. Now you add independent, arguably already independent, autonomous intelligences with the ability to sway public opinion, to develop these relationships in sneaky fashion with unsuspecting people. I mean, this is not good. This is where I agree with you. So it's just a minor edit to what you're saying.
But I would say that how all social media operate. The flow of information is governed by various algorithms. They are just models of narrow AI. All recommendation engines that decide what is likely to be seen in a given social media channel, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, are simple AI models. These models cannot
Well, I don't know about that.
think in any logical manner. They don't recognize environment in any fashion, but this massive employment of narrow AI models destroyed public communication all over the world. Even before we built LML models that, according to some of the creators, start to understand what they communicate to us.
I just want to understand your full argument. I see the evidence that you're doing. I can see how this misinformation, which you both study, is true. That many of the algorithms are very susceptible for that because it's more popularity than truth that's being pursued. Mm-hmm. Those are all good things. Mm-hmm. And I see what your concerns are about the allocations of funds of which problems to solve in humanity. And therefore what? What are you suggesting?
I would suggest to look human solution for human problems. And we are looking for technical solutions to human problems.
Yeah, so here's where
just to make a great Gestalt switch.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Let's make a thought experiment. Let's imagine what would happen if we devoted 300 billions of dollars into finding human solutions to human problems. If the research, if we find ethical research, psychological research, artistic research, and poverty research in a broad interdisciplinary manner, maybe here we could obtain a real progress, a real human progress.
Yeah, but that's a separate. It's
But
a
I
separate
only encourage
recommendation.
to start with a thought experiment.
No,
Let's start.
I understand. That was the part that when you gave your initial, this is not meant to be pejorative in any way, when you gave your initial soliloquy, I said at the conclusion of it, I'd have to bracket that for later. I don't know that I can go with this recommendation, but I can go with your diagnosis. I'm an AI person. Okay, I make my lab is devoted now for almost 30 years to making AI technology. Okay, making the robot for the family that really wants one, and when it arrives can improve their lives greatly, and doing it right is what I want to do. I'm condemning the nature of the AI that's being produced and the nature of its deployment because of the human nature that's gone awry in people calling the shots here. We need AI all over the place to do things that are necessary and that will make our lives better.
Why we need AI?
When you reach a point, you're much younger than me. So when you reach a point where only 10% of the drivers on the road are humans, and 80% of the vehicles, I'm talking about cars, are being driven by AIs. Trust me, you will want those AI-controlled vehicles not to brake, not to have accidents. You could say, well, I want to turn back the clock and not have cars that drive themselves. That's impossible. Okay, then we will not have a train that goes from Zurich to Rapperswil. We can't do that. So we have to do it correctly, and that's what I'm saying. I've made explicit recommendations and pursued demos for those kinds of AIs. Those cars have to be done the right way.
Yeah, but on the other hand, why we need or we have this thinking that our lives should be safer the most, should be healthier the most, should be without any danger, any obstacles. Why? It's not.
Well, I mean, just like having a ski accident and breaking your leg
it's
is a bad thing. Having a car accident's a bad thing. Having an aircraft.
It's necessary for growing as a person to have obstacles, to have some dangerous.
Well, that's God's plan.
That's what I'm hearing.
But that's not at a local level. Things don't work.
Could I use your word idolatry? It's idolatry that we can build technically safe world. It's an idolatry.
But it's against God's will also.
I think that's probably, it's ontologically impossible. You can only displace area of dangers.
I don't disagree with that, but the boss, it looks like the moderator here is...
Yes, I like the comment about the nature of today's LLMs and AI models, that they are trained on the human knowledge, what has been produced in the past. But and then right now the approach is to constantly retrain the models with a bigger AI clusters, with a much more investments. However, we have discussed today, and I think that you have read it in the news, that today let's say some countries, Russia, China, they are having those content factories. They are let's say they are poisoning today the infosphere with some artificially created ideas to actually, which leads to the point where maybe in the next version of those LLMs we could not longer trust them.
We still cannot trust them.
What do you think about
in the future, definitely.
This? By definition, this approach is false, or maybe flawed, not false by flawed.
Which approach is
to
LLMs in general, or deep learning?
Exactly.
Okay.
We train.
Yes. One of the astounding things from a technical perspective about where AI has gotten to in 2025 is that the Nobel Prize winner, I believe under physics, for deep learning, Hinton. He stood on the shoulders of many other people who also used artificial neural networks before him. He invented, quote, a technology that was known by so many people and asserted to be fundamentally deficient. It's a fundamentally, and you put your finger on the, put your finger on the.
You mean reverse propagation, yeah?
Well, I mean more generally that that whatever responses you get back must be analogous to something that's been produced in the past, roughly. And all the things that have been produced in the past as a complete set includes bad, good, ugly, disgusting, criminal, etc. by definition, because no judgments are made about the data in a principled way before it goes into the training phase. But if we say the basis is analogy, okay, well, we've known this. This is why people on the logic side said immediately, but wait, don't you need precise reasoning that isn't related to analogy? Don't you need like chains of explicit inference, and you can check each one in a proof? Though that was half the people in '56, and now by 2025 they're mostly gone. So you don't have any control, as you say. You don't have any control, leaving aside the bad actors who are even making it worse. You have no control over the quality of the data that goes in on any kind of structured, rational basis. We're just getting back what we Stephen Wolfram has talked to me. The initial LLM, it couldn't do any addition past like 27. Yeah. It could, and he's like, well, of course you don't know why. Of course it does that. Look how it works, basically. You should have known
Isn't that
this.
just part of the normal? To me, this is part of the normal. What's the news here? That the Russians are putting misinformation into something? Whatever the technology is, that's what they're going to do.
The news is a systemic devastation of the human social communication space. That's the new. It's a sort of a reversal of the Enlightenment process. The Enlightenment process was reversed with the emergence of social media.
You see, there you're looking at the glass as half empty, which means it's apocalyptic. And I look at the glass as half full, as saying this is a great opportunity for humanity. And
this analogy doesn't hold.
I have fundamental trust in humanity that we figure things out. I think there were people in history who faced much worse decisions and much worse inflection points that we're facing today, and humanity comes out. I have a fundamental trust. So when I'm seeing this, it doesn't, I want to make sure I don't say this the wrong way, it doesn't, quote, worry me that the Russians are doing this, because it's part of our development, and we will adapt. And I'm glad that we're finding the bad actor, because we're going to fix it. And
did you see the movie Oppenheimer?
But but can I jump into, because these beliefs of humanity, I really believe in humanity too, but you have to remember about this bad side of humanity. And you think we can manage this problem. I spent 5 years of my life to fight with Russian disinformation in Poland. And sorry to tell you that it isn't true, because they put a lot of money into doing that, and we don't have any tool as a particular country to save our people, because everything is decided on big tech.
You don't have to save your people. They're already saved.
No, they eat poison and food because of this information.
If we're making this into an apocalyptic discussion, then let me give you some good news. They already are saved. As a Christian, going through history as a Christian is like reading this really interesting novel, but I know the last chapter.
You haven't been on my speech when I use this metaphor from Bible. Of Bible Tower, because people built in this metaphor something great, to develop humanity, to have this power, to go and be like a God, to have heaven on the earth. And what happens there? God decides to mix their tongues because they went in bad way.
Yes.
God doesn't want us to make heaven on earth. Then God wants us to be better to ourselves. But heaven is in the heaven. And
Yes,
we should
but-
wait
Okay,
for
so
that.
who has to destroy? Who is going to play God to destroy this tower? In your opinion?
The answer is
Andrew
pretty,
is better in bad scenarios. but-
pretty simple. But first, let me note that you offered a deep shift of kind of our argument. You moved from empirical arguments into a transcendent argument. That may be fine with me, but sometimes I put such a question.
No, but sir-
If God
Let's finish.
would like to finally manage practically with the task of the judgment day, how could that happen? The God who could deliver us with such a choice. Now you may employ your reason, that's the gift I gave you, either to build AI as an instrument that will pretty soon get out of any of your control, or you can pull the brake, remembering my teachings. And now, from this theological point of view, this is the sort of dilemma. Either mankind would be intelligent enough to pull the brake, or will go to the abyss. And probably involuntarily you support this competition towards the judgment day.
No, I have confidence that we will not go into the abyss with this.
You have confidence in your own reading of the scripture.
Well, you
No.
do agree that we'll go into small abysses because you said
Yeah.
you read the narrative of human history from the standpoint
Yeah.
of Christianity.
I just
when we
don't
drop,
think it's
when
as
the U.S.
absolute-
dropped the two atom
Yeah.
the two atom bombs in Japan. A lot of people died.
Yeah.
If Putin uses tactical nuclear weapons, a lot more people
Yeah.
will probably die. So we have a lot of battles to fight, despite what you rightly say is the final chapter. We know that. But in the meantime, can't we may disagree, we may agree
Yeah.
on some things, but we have to battle against things that we know are,
Yes.
or perhaps even agree on.
I just don't like what is not being verbalized, but is very thick under your argument. At least that's what I perceive. Is this apocalyptic vision? It's like this understanding of the world is going to fall apart. This is such a fundamental change that we're basically doomed.
Well, you,
That's what I'm reacting
you also have an have an apocalyptic vision
Yes,
too.
but not on
You
the.
said you're a
Andreas,
Christian and you know how
Andreas,
things are going to end. It's
Andreas,
apocalyptic.
it's not correct, because my lecture was the second part of devotion.
Yeah.
My lecture was devoted to coining instruments for David opposition to Goliath of this technology run away.
Yeah.
Well, we have to study your. Unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to do that. But
So-
I would be happy to have your feedback.
Well,
So
I'm
I
sure
want to
we'll-
That's why
differentiate.
I would say that Mustafa Suleiman in his book Coming Flow, a pretty famous book, but he coined the notion of aversion to pessimism. That people, especially political elites, they cherish strong aversion to pessimism, because any politician or reformist and scholar that would declare realistically devised pessimist vision would be cut off either from electorate or research money and so on. But it's our duty to as intellectuals,
Yep.
to be pessimist whenever we find sound arguments for bleak scenarios. And our other duty is to look for optimists' measures of a biblical David style, how to oppose the Goliath, the big
Okay.
text Goliath.
If I can, I want to differentiate myself from Andrew, because say we are together. No, I'm not. I'm not a skeptic. I'm more realistic person. So I teach how to use AI correctly, and I try to be honest that in some parts it's necessary to have knowledge how to use it correctly. I understand your point in that way. And on the other hand, I really believe that we shouldn't be naive and think only positive, that it support everything and it helps, because we still have to remember that questioning is a way to growing.
Yes.
And we have to all the time think back and ask this question, why? That's why I asked it to you.
Yeah.
Why we need AI? Why we need to have
Okay.
easier life, better, and everything which make us lazy, to be
So,
honest.
Yeah,
as a
see, this is
humanity.
what I'm saying.
Andreas, I would say I admire your faith. In a way, I envy your faith. But I would think that I was talking to a prominent engineering professor in Poland. He, after reading my book on AI, said, I don't share your anxiety, because for us believers, for us Christians, we know that the good will triumph. But
But we fight for every
what
particular
is
person.
this a testing point for us? That we have to oppose the dark forces to operate smoothly and easily. That
totally
so
agree.
much too easily.
I
Very much
totally
too easily.
agree. So that we're starting. A lot of the what confuses me is we have different levels of argument. We have the apocalyptic, we have the transcendent, but then. So I'm separated this in this way, that I'm not concerned about the apocalypse per se, because I know, to me that's settled. So then we're in AI. Yes, we have a moral duty to fight evil. There are some people who have evil intentions using AI. Like with any other technology, there's people with evil intentions who use knives, right? And so, except here, we have some people who are very much in specific power to use AI for nefarious reasons, and that's something we need to fight.
Yeah, but there is the phenomenon of unintended consequences. That people with good evil,
Yeah.
that
Good
Intention.
intentions. Yeah.
what Jeffrey Hinton declared probably some 3 months after GPT was delivered. He said he declared that he resigns from continuation his job for Google in order to have more freedom commenting issues, and then he said, a part of me regrets what I helped to
To
achieve.
create. It's
Yes.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
Yes.
But what about the idea?
That's the sound
But you-
moral position.
We're looking at a
here's the
moving
thing,
target.
let's-
We're looking at a moving target. The next generation of AI now. What's the French guy who just left? Who's with
Yann LeCun.
Zuckerberg? There's French guy with the
Yann
dark
Le-
glasses.
Yann
Yann
LeCun.
LeCun.
Yeah. And what about him who says, "Oh, this has to be, it has to be moved over. If you use the language theory, it's not going to work. We need visual theory."
Because his ambitions cannot be fulfilled with unfolding LM models.
Yeah.
And he is even more ambitious
Yeah,
than
exactly.
the other creators.
Exactly. So there's a further development of this, and that's why I'm saying that this is not, we're not at the end of it. We're in the middle of it, and I encourage everybody. This is what you're doing. We should get involved rather than run away from it. That's my basic point, is to be a part of the solution rather than the problem.
That's why I
What
accepted
about growth,
Miroslav's
Andreas?
invitation.
Maybe some people can do it, but it doesn't dichotomy. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
that we all
That's
have
why
to
I'm saying
choose.
that
Some people can do
I
this
do
and
not
some can do this.
disagree with the empirical research that you're doing, because we teach the same age population. I see the students being addicted to the phone. I don't have to look to the students to be addicted to phone. I can just look at. I can just look in the mirror.
Exactly.
And so I understand all that. And now the question is, how do we move forward? My allergic reaction is in everything in life when we say they. where I think the responsibility is with me. We as an individual have a lot of power, and I don't know. I don't like victim mentality. I come out of an environment of an experience in life where I found that I have a lot of agency and that I can do a lot of things and change things, and therefore I don't want to. I think people can grow out of social media addiction. People of any addiction.
Sometimes, only sometimes, just like with people addicted to alcohol or cigarettes, yes, it's established that only people with some sort of genes can move out of independently on their own. Other people need support.
Or a higher force,
Yeah.
or God himself, but something has to also, I think, help get out of this.
But
Yes,
I'm
and I
with
really
you,
like,
Andreas,
I really
in
like
this
this,
topic.
your idea to start from ourselves.
Yeah.
To really start small. Start from.
Otherwise, we're petrified, right? We're
Yes, yes.
petrified.
No,
and
yeah,
we
that's
think
why
we're
we have to
petrified.
create more opportunities, especially for younger generation, to be
Yeah.
together, to do things together as a humans without
See, and there's-
AI, to develop
there
some
are-
problems.
There are investment groups. Like I have a list. We just talked before. I don't know with whom, with you, about creating groups of investors. Like we have AI forums, Christian AI forums, Catholic AI forums. But I'm bringing together investors and startup founders. I'm bringing together people who are going in different directions, just to show that, people vote with their interest and with their money every day, and it's a very powerful vote. Yeah, it maybe not be hundreds of billions of dollars, but once you start, it has an effect. I actually think there is a good chance. I find in my work that people are starting to have a hangover with social media. They even start to have a hangover with AI, with these, the same stupid voices, and how this stuff, and there's this blandness of this, and there's going to be a pendulum shift, and I want to hang on that pendulum and swing back and bring a lot of people with me. I see a development. There's Vinley, there's Truthly, there's all these systems and these communities that are growing up that I'm trying to get people to invest in, and I'm trying to mentor some of these founders, that we create alternatives. And that's just in my nature, being I'm a cheerleader, like I'm on the positive side of changing that. But let me go back to
Let
again
me just say one thing. This is a really good idea, because I do need money.
That's great ending.
I do need funding to be more delicate about it. So this is really good for the kind of AI that makes sense. This is
Thank you. It's been a great discussion. Thank you very much. Terrific discussion points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm fundamentally somebody who thinks that technology is a net positive for humanity. It's part of our progress. It's part of value creation, which involves prosperity at the end. And so my advice with AI is to be careful with it, but to engage with it. And if you engage with it, you can use your moral influence, your values and everything to make it be a part of the solution, rather than being a part of the problem. And so I would encourage you to get involved and create new alternatives, progress, but to participate in this endeavor.
For me, AI is an opportunity to step back and try to find love to create positive relationship with other humans. So let's try to be focused more on how we can create healthy and positive relationship with each other, and use AI only for technical things. Let's start to train ourselves to be better human to other human than to build relationship with technology. That's my recommendation. Come back to real world, come back to real community, spend time together, grow as a people.
We need to be realistic about the main drivers of AI today, the main drivers are aspirations to build machines that not only match us in ability, cognitive ability, intelligence, but also exceed us. This is really what, from the beginning of AI, has been driving the whole enterprise. At the same time, AI in and of itself as a technology offers tremendous opportunity if it is pursued methodologically in the right way. And that's what I would like to see. On the first, the darker view, I do think specifically that Christianity offers really the only hope of understanding why it's dark. Part of that reason is that the only, as far as I know, main doctrine of Orthodox Christianity generically considered is the doctrine of original sin, inclinations on the part of humans to not be so good across the board. And what we see in AI today is that it's taking advantage of this side of human nature. But there's a way out, and hopefully together, including specifically people who are here with me today, can escape from this. But it's a serious problem, and the solutions have to be pursued with much energy and much wisdom.
Yeah, don't worry. That's my word. It'll be fine. It will be work out. It will work out. In life, we have a tendency to end up exactly where we are supposed to be. It's going to be the case here as well.
I see what I heard right now as a proclamation of the most dangerous ideology of the current world. This is the ideology of techno enthusiasm. There is no other more dangerous ideology all over the world now than techno enthusiasm. And two other comments. First, we need to get rid of this dogma that technology progress is net positive. It's an umbrella generalization that doesn't fit to reality when we start to analyze impact of digital technologies when compared to analog technologies. I think from the moment of growth of the internet, technologies have managed to develop autonomously, largely beyond human comprehension. And the last and final observation and recommendation is that there are many strong, dark, negative forces out underway, but I think that the critical point hasn't been reached yet, and there is still a way out. But this way out is not easily visible. We have to devote a lot of efforts to find it and move this way out of this reckless competition for higher minds.